fellas, we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out as one. We getting paid to go figure it out. We got to go do it. So, I know, time is always is always something that is great for teams. Teams that have been together long and understand offensive concepts and what we're trying to get to at certain points in the game, defensively as well. But no one told us when we signed up to enter the NBA draft or to be a free agent to get a chance to play in the NBA that it was going to be easy.
God, dude, we're like, all right, Mackie and Judd, daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, venting, therapy. Got our guy here, Dane Moore, from the Dane Moore NBA podcast. Definitely check that out anywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We're like 9 games into the season here, and you go back 2 weeks ago, and the Wolves they're energetic, we're having fun. Cat's got this bright smile, and now he's just like leaned over the microphone at the podium. We're 2 weeks in, and he's just like, yeah, this sucks. This is terrible. Yeah.
It has been terrible. It has been terrible because they set up expectations, right? Like, it's not that rare to be 3-6 in the NBA. There's a lot of bad teams out there. The Wolves are just one of those bad teams that pitch themselves as not being that, right? Like, this wasn't supposed to be this bumpy to start the year, and it's five straight now. That's just like it was the first 5 games when Chris Finch came in last year, right before the All-Star break, right after Saunders got fired. I mean, it's as bad as it's been in a while.
What's going wrong here, Dane? Because to your point, it wasn't supposed to be like this. And you know what? I get you're going to lose games. It happens. But I sat by you for 2 games of the 4-game homestand, and you lose to the Magic. What is going for Chris Finch off the rails here that I guess he can fix quickly, if anything?
So actually, that clip that Declan played was I was the one who asked him that question last night, and it struck me in the questions before I asked that Cat was talking about we need to execute at the end of these games. We need to execute, and that doesn't make sense to me because you have a coach who is putting a system in that is not scripted plays. They don't have a scripted offense. They don't. Chris Finch has said that a bunch of times. It is an offensive scheme that is just about playing off of each other. Chris Finch is a believer that if you just kind of flow off of these guys and you don't structure them, you kind of let their talent spread their wings. I don't know if it's a good strategy or bad strategy. That kind of sounds nice. But the problem is with Cat specifically, I think, if he thinks execution is the problem, there's a disconnect here because this is not an executable offense. That's just not what it's designed to be. And to me, it kind of makes sense with Cat. Like, if you look at his, the coaches for the majority of his career, like Tibbs' execution, right, to a T. It's like A, B, C, let's do that. That's what our offensive scheme is. That's what our defensive scheme is. And Ryan Saunders too. Like, obviously a different style than Tibbs, but Ryan Saunders was like a heavy play call guy. He's like the offensive coordinator who's scripted out the whole first drive of the football game. So for Tibbs, or so for Cat, I mean, it makes sense to me that he doesn't understand this, doesn't feel comfortable in this yet. But what I think Timberwolves fans should be concerned about is that he might not understand what the thing even is here. Like, what is he supposed to be doing? And obviously now we're 9 games in the season. The Wolves are like 26th in offensive rating.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? You have Karl-Anthony Towns. You don't even need to say Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and DAngelo Russell. Like, Cat has been a walking top 10 offense with crap around him for years. You know what I mean? So it's like there's something happening here where there is disconnect between what's supposed to be playing out, not just it's not just missing shots.
Yes. I mean, there was definitely some, like, you could go back and nitpick a couple games and say, okay, well, if the Clippers don't shoot 68% through 3 quarters or whatever, but like here's what I think I would be most worried about on behalf of this franchise, and this is more of a macro thing, and you can help fill it in, Dane.
Sure.
Is that, I mean, when you look at Cat and you look at D'Lo, the NBA historically is littered with guys. Kevin Love was one of these guys with the Timberwolves that put up amazing box scores on losing teams. D'Lo, D'Lo will put up 30 points like last night, and last night was one of his better games, I think, as a Wolf up until some of the end sequences, that weird drop pass to Jaden McDaniels that went the other way for a turnover. Like, you can't do that if you're the leader of a team in that situation. But I guess what I would worry about is that these guys have had so much losing basketball around them, some of it self-inflicted, some of it out of their control in their careers. But I did the homework on this. D'Lo and Cat combined in their careers, their teams, when they play, are 299 and 484, which is a 31 and 51 average record. Now, some of those are together, a small handful. But I think I worry that we've reached the point of no return with these guys as the leaders of a really good NBA team. How much of it is their fault versus how much of it is just, hey, sorry, you just had to endure a bunch of bad crap with the Timberwolves and a rebuilding Lakers team for D'Lo. And, you know, that's my thought is, like, I watch this and I'm like, God, they don't know how to hold on to a 16 point. It's not just that game last night. Like, they don't know what to do to win that game.
No, I think a lot of that's fair. It's experience in winning time, right? Because there's a bunch of games that those guys have both played in on bad teams where it's just, 15, 20-point loss. And, that just racks up a bunch of those 489 losses. But then, even last year, right, when the Wolves weren't even in very many games, remember that Karl-Anthony buzzer beater where they just totally fumble it away at the end? I mean, it's pretty much every single time the Wolves are in these late game situations, they're either not experienced enough or they don't know what to do, right? And I would extend that beyond Cat and D'Lo, but you're right. As the leaders, you got to be the vocal ones. And what the Milwaukee game is the little gold star on the bulletin board of the season. They almost blew that one too at the end of the game, right? Where they just kind of honestly looked exactly like this Memphis game last night, but they had just enough defense, or Milwaukee, didn't have enough help around Giannis to be able to do it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, this is what it is, guys. It probably isn't enough. They're probably never going to be the next good Timberwolves team is probably not going to be Karl-Anthony Towns, DAngelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards. Just probably won't be. I mean, hopefully, that's what I know. That's what all the fans who are going to the games and listen to this want. But yeah, it's just kind of naive to be like, this is it. This isn't working. This roster doesn't. Why? What is the suggestion to the contrary, Phil? What would suggest that it will work?
I don't think that trio is the trio either. So how many role players can you put around that trio with salary cap limitations?
Let's talk about that. Let's actually hit on that, because that is part of this. Isn't those guys' fault? This is getting ridiculous with what's surrounding those three. Now, I don't think Cat had a very good game last night. Ant has started to shoot poorly, and D'Lo more than half the games has been bad. But it's ridiculous what is the way this roster was put together. I think it's individually they don't have a power forward.
Yeah.
Watch the game. Josh Okogie is not getting guarded. One, he's 6'4", plays power forward. Teams are literally not guarding him. And then they're not guarding Okogie in the corner, and then they're not guarding Jared Vanderbilt in the dunker spot.
Malik Beasley's a non-fit too. Beasley.
I like Beasley's fit a little bit more because he can shoot, space the floor.
Yeah.
You're asking these guys who are too many guys on the team who are one-way players to do, in different ways, one-way players, and it just totally breaks down. I think the book is out on this Wolves team of okay, don't guard that guy, don't guard this guy. This is what they do defensively. They're not very big. Attack the middle. It's it's not complicated.
Yeah.
So Dane, who among the core group then does fit? If you could right now,
who's the core group? Well, that's the thing.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Is Ant the core guy, and Cat and D'Lo don't fit? Are Ant and Cat the main guys, and D'Lo has to be subtracted? If they start to look at this thing, and I think that the next GM or Pobo is going to have to, and I don't know that it's the current guy in charge right now. Where would you start as far as this guy's actually going to fit, but the third guy doesn't?
Right. Well, I think right now, probably for this season, you do need to consider it as this trio.
Sure.
And what's the best way to maximize this trio? And part of that is going to be mean, this is a broken roster. This is like a team that got auto drafted in your fantasy league and you didn't get all the positions. Like they're going to lose games because of that. So I think step one for Sachin Gupta, the current GM, is to figure that out and say, if we actually put a competent roster construction around this trio, what will it look like? And maybe that still won't work. Probably it still won't work, but it's not time to you can't just go right now and explode it up and blow it up and make your, now Ant's the guy. Like, this is going to be a gradual process. So what are your steps along the way to get there? And I think you got to try and make this trio work or see what this trio looks like with a competent structure. But then outside of that, that probably won't work either. Odds are, right? And then you're just entering the off season, and you probably just got to pick Ant. Like, Cat's up for an extension this summer. Joel Embiid signed a 4-year, $200 million extension this past offseason. He's 1 year ahead in his career of Cat. So Cat will have 2 years left on his contract after this year. But when you're that caliber of player, been with the same team your whole career, you can sign an extension. So I don't feel like people understand this or not. Like, Cat decision time is this summer.
Yes.
Because if he doesn't sign that extension, then there's two paths. It's trade. It's just Anthony Davis, White, just traded right away. Or it's the Giannis thing. Remember, Giannis didn't sign his extension right away, and he was like, "Hey, 1 year, prove it to me. Like, trade for all these guys. We're going all in. We're going all in." They did go all in, got very good, and then he agreed, to sign the extension. But I don't feel like people understand that, because right now it's like, oh, Cat has 3 years left. No, decision time with Cat is this coming up off season. So you better put together a team. If it's important for you to keep Cat, you better put together a team right now that convinces him, to stay. That it will be somewhere.
Have you seen? I mean, I think we all agree. It's funny because on paper you can make a case for the Wolves have 9 or 10 like rotation NBA players, but then you're right.
Totally do.
Well, once you start to pick them apart and say, okay, well, but Okogie is a defensive specialist, energy guy that's undersized to play 4, and they don't really have a 4. It's it's not a symbiotic relationship with those 9 guys. And so I think my next question is, all right, well, the rumor all summer, and not even the rumor, I mean, you've been reporting on this, they were heavily involved in Ben Simmons discussions, and I think everyone observing the team and everyone even internally said, all right, once it got to a certain point and you went to camp and you played preseason games, let's see what this collection looks like, and then maybe reevaluate if he's still available in November, December. Well, I've seen enough at this point to say that there's not going to be a magical turnaround with this current roster. I would be curious to see Ben Simmons playing with Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. And I didn't mention D'Lo because I think you're going to have to trade D'Lo in his salary to make it work. And I don't think that D'Lo's a great fit with this team anyways. I don't think he's a winning player. Do you think, and give us your intel and then give us just your educated thoughts here, does this start make it more likely that they will re-engage Philadelphia and or a third team in season to try and get Ben Simmons?
I think one of the things that I've learned about the whole Ben Simmons thing is it didn't even, any sort of talks really didn't even start until a couple of weeks ago. It was the whole thing that Morey was just basically, shutting it down, waiting until he lost leverage of Simmons coming to camp. There has not been a substantive, as I understand it, there was not any substantive Ben Simmons trade talks all summer, all fall, including with the Timberwolves or other teams, because at those times, Philly wasn't going to get anything. So really, from a Wolves standpoint, anything that started there has started in these, we're now about 2.5 weeks into the season. It's all kind of been in this crazy flow of the beginning of the season, which has been, wild for the Wolves in their own right. It kind of did feel like they had a good vibe there at the beginning. How much of your Gupta do you want to mess with that? But ultimately, Sachin Gupta is an extremely logical thinker. He will chart this out and deem what he believes is the best decision, which, all GMs do. But they let other things sort of get in the way, right? Gerson Rosas made a lot of moves based on how they would reflect on his perception, right? That was the Rosas thing. And I think it's just so curious with the Gupta thing because he's this extremely logical thinker. You know, that's what that is his thing. That is the thing that makes him great is that. But if you trade for Ben Simmons and you're Sachin Gupta, you're keeping your job, right? Like you got to think like that buys you time.
Right.
So if you're Gupta, do you go to yourself and you say, trading for Ben Simmons might not obviously be a green move, like a positive move. But if I make this move, it will buy me time to go make surrounding moves for the rest of this that will ultimately be better for the team. And then that starts sounding Rosas-y. So I don't know. It's just it's a really bizarre position for Gupta to be in or for this franchise to be in.
And what's your take on this too? So Sachin has the job for now, but he doesn't have the title. So he's in charge, but he's in charge for now. We've got the guy who owns the team and is going to own the team for 2 more years, I believe. But the guy who is going to own the team in 2 years is courtside for most games and is rich beyond belief. And clearly is not like, I'll just wait my turn guy. And this is so Wolves. Who's running this team and how much latitude do you think that person has to actually do? Because like, if you're going to trade for Ben, you're right, Dane. If Sachin Gupta goes to Taylor and Laurie and says, I'm trading for Ben, and they're like, yes, that's great. My sense is he's the guy. He's going to get the job, right? So who is in charge of this team right now? And how much does the potential that you've got a lot of chefs in the kitchen actually make this a stickier situation because of that fact?
It's wild, Judd. I mean, really think about it. Like Mark Laurie has bought this team and is now tasked with, figuring out who is going to run the business side of the organization and run the basketball side of the organization. Who is he going to talk to help him understand who should run the business side of the organization or the basketball side of the organization? Now, like you would like to think he's got a background in business, yada, yada, yada. He'll be able to, figure that part out. But what I think is such a fascinating question and one that will be defining for this franchise is who is Mark Laurie consulting to decide who the next president of basketball operations is for the Timberwolves? Who is it? He's not a basketball guy. Who does he even know? Who does he even know? Because he can't, he's cool with Sachin. He can't consult Sachin about hiring Sachin. You know what I mean? But that's literally the only basketball person, as I understand it, that Mark Laurie knows is Sachin Gupta.
Yeah. And you might think, well, are there any other owners that would maybe he could talk to Mark Cuban, because Mark Cuban's also a tech guy. It's like, yeah, but Mark Cuban might be nice to Mark Laurie and say, hey, welcome into the club, but he's not going to Mark Cuban wants to dominate the West. Like the other owners aren't going to help you find, a GM or a Pobo that can knock their franchise down a peg. It is interesting.
And Mark Cuban's hiring just terrific.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? You know what I'm saying though? Like,
yeah,
that whoever that guy is, this mystery helper, is going to define the future of the Timberwolves, because that guy is going to determine: are you trading Cat? Are you trading for Ben Simmons? Are you trading for Cat? Is this team going to have success? And then this team has success, then they stay in Minnesota. If this team doesn't have success and they're a disaster for the next 5 years, like now there's a bill put to the Minnesota state legislature or whatever to build a stadium. Like, winning matters right now in Minnesota. Like, the next 5 years are extremely important for this team because you need to convince the state of Minnesota to publicly fund a stadium.
Yes.
If you keep looking like the disaster you've been for the last 5 weeks and you roll it out over again this year and you finish the year like 27-45 or whatever, like, once everyone said, oh, the over is the biggest, bet the over on the Timberwolves, myself included. This is obvious, 33.5 wins. If you lose that again and people, it's just like they gotta get it right. And I have no idea, Judd. I don't know. I don't know who's
Well,
running it.
To be continued. Luckily, the schedule lightens up. They just have to play the Warriors in their next game. Steph dropped a cool 50 points last night, almost a 50-point triple-double. So there it is. All right, go check out his podcast, Dane Moore NBA Podcast, Apple, Spotify, and you can hit up his Patreon too. And as you see on the screen on the YouTube channel here, at Dane Moore NBA, he does excellent work covering the Timberwolves and the rest of the league. He's a friend of the show. So Dane, all right, we'll do it again sometime soon, man. Thanks for coming on.
For sure.
Cooking up
sometime
your takes.
after a win. You've never brought me on at a time where it'd be like, hey, Wolves look good.
Yeah, I mean, listen. We booked you 16-point lead with 7 minutes to go in the fourth. We were like, this is a guaranteed win. Nope. All right, Dane. We'll talk next time, man.
Thanks, Dan.
That's Dane Moore here on Mackie and Judd, and Timberwolves, man. He's right though. Like this is
the Timberwolves.
Well, yeah, it's like because Glenn kind of runs it, but not really, and
He's
Gupta
still
kind of
there.
runs it, but not really.
Laurie's across the court. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Laurie.
Laurie, over to Taylor.
Hey, Rod. Back to Taylor.
Back
Over
to
to
A-Rod.
Sachin.
To
Sachin fires, goes wide.
Here's
You know,
Finch.
the Timberwolves
Picked it
could
up.
use some more risk management help, I think, and that's where Federated comes in here for business owners. If you're looking to protect your bottom line, protect your employees, or protect 16-point leads in the fourth quarter, they can't really help you with that. But Federated can help you in your business with a lot of other things. Find out more about all the different resources they have when it comes to risk management at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, we ran out of time for random season recall, which is probably good for Judd and I, because I feel like Declan was about to throw like the
was gonna throw
1986 North Stars at us or something.
That might be for next week now. Yeah,
Okay, so
we can do that.
We'll bring that back
Special
for next week. All right, boys. Good stuff here. Bonus scoop with Doogie also later today. Probably going to be Wolves heavy, so definitely check that out. And click the subscribe button on the SKOR North YouTube channel if that is where you're consuming Mackie and Judd today. See you guys.